Morning, 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 Lakhi Singh, the property fixer.
Morning.
Welcome to the hour drive time session, 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. with Lakhi Singh, the property fixer. A lot of people have asked, why is it that DJ sells the property fixer and Lakhi Singh doesn't really have the energy to do? I don't know. My only question is to you, Lakhi Singh. Why is it you never say the property fixer or make the sign when you use the word, or when I say it, don't you believe in the property fixer?
Yeah, I've got one hand holding the camera today. That's why.
What are you doing with the other hand?
Other hand, I'm putting up as half across. There we go.
Oh, half across, right? Okay. And I think we've also got, is it Adnan?
It is indeed, Vijay. How are you?
Morning, Adnan. Morning. LPA Properties. How are you doing?
I'm okay. It's just a morning rush this morning, dropping the kids off at school.
Dropping
get
the
back
kids
to the
at
grind.
School. Good. So you're actually in a drive time then? Yes, in a real virtual drive.
A proper drive time.
Good. Excellent. So we're continuing. We've got a special guest today as well to let you know, guys. Sajal Patel, who's been sort of interacting with us off and on the group, and I think she's managed to gather the courage to come on and be honest with this hour drive time session. Her background is that she's a financial controller with Cardigan Tate. I think a lot of people may have heard the name but don't know what they do. No, they're not a bakery company. They're not doing confectionery, but actually they do logistics and removal for corporations and high net worth individuals. So I think she manages the America and the European operations, and she deals with the clients who are probably is it artifacts, I think? Is it high-end items? I'm not sure exactly what it says in the notes. Let me have a look. It says, what type of things is it she's moving across? कौन सी चीजें हैं चला? Mute किए? Art. Fine art. Yep, I've got that now. It's fine arts division. That's right. Sorry about that. Took me a bit of time to get the notes out. So yeah, she's dealing with a fine arts division, which I assume means expensive artifacts and things like that. Yep, bring her on in a few seconds. I think we're ready, are we? Morning, Sajal. How are you doing?
Fine, thank you. How are you?
Finally, we get to see the lady behind the fingers, behind the text. Which way around is it? Is it the lady behind the fingers, behind the text, or, as Lakhi would say, the fingers behind the person behind the text?
I'd like to say the brain. I'd like to say the brain behind the fingers.
The brains behind the fingers. Okay. So you're actually quite a clever young lady, I believe. You're a financial controller. Is that right?
Clever, I'm not sure. I get by, but yes, financial controller for definite.
Lovely personality. I like that. Modest as well. Not like us. We're very open about our expertise. And our expertise, obviously, Mr. Lakhi Singh, the property fixer. Lakhi Singh has only got one hand today, so it's basically fixer.
Actually, found a way of fixing that problem.
You found a way of fixing that. There you are. He's a camera fixer as well. So Lakhi Singh, the property fixer, who I thought was only an fixer, now is again a fixer. Is that right, Lakhi Singh?
That's right. Lakhi will fix it.
Yes, and we've got the infamous Mr. Adnan Pasha also on a drive time, dropping his kids off, or maybe they're dropping him off. I'm not sure which way around it is. Yeah, that dirty smile and snigger seems to suggest something else. Are you actually dropping the kids off, Adnan, or is that?
I am indeed.
It's got a Mr. Burns type of laughter, and that little laughter at the end seems to suggest he's doing something evil. We don't know what, but anyhow. So we got Sajal here today. So everyone say hello to Sajal.
Good morning, everybody.
Morning, and you, Ixa or Fixer, can you please acknowledge that she's actually here with us, or you still?
Hi, Sajal, how you doing? You okay? Sajal, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Morning, Lakhi.
Great.
How are you doing? You okay?
Fine, thank you. How are you?
I'm fantastic, thank you.
Good, good.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
I think,
Yeah, Mr. Burns?
I think VJ sounds a bit tired today. I think he wants me to possibly take over and run the show. I think I got that hint first thing in the morning. Is that right,
Yeah.
VJ?
Yeah, you've been able to catch my vibes. I feel
I've
really
managed
tired.
to literally get a second to slip in there, actually say something.
No, I mean, the point is, I am the VJ for the Fixer. So it's my show, so you can butt out. So today we have a guest called Sajal, and today we're going to focus on Sajal's. Just give us a brief, Sajal. You're a financial controller. I think it's Cardigan Tate, which are logistics and removal company, and I believe it's for. Is it Europe and the Americans? Is it you're managing all their offices?
So I manage the fine art services for our UK branch, but I also dabble my hands in the US. We have branches in Miami, LA, New York, Chicago, and we also have branches in. So I dabble my fingers where I can in all the sites.
You dabble your fingers. I like that. It's a combination of two terminologies. You have your fingers in and you dabble in, but you double your fingers, which probably makes it a bit more involving. Yes?
Correct. I pick and choose when I want to be in it. So yes.
Excellent.
Priority though.
That's really nice. Adnan, have you ever dabbled your fingers in things?
I don't think so, EJ, no.
That dirty laugh seems to suggest something else. But anyhow, this is not about your weird, dark world. This is about Sajal today. So Sajal, give us a flavor, because I think you've been making comments and you've been interacting with us, and you're on our group. Are you into properties? First question. Have you got properties, and have you dabbled into?
So I own a property, like residential property, but in terms of actually investing in properties, I'm a very newbie to this. I've only started back in June. So I've learned all the strategies, and now it's a question of looking for deals and buying them.
Excellent. Okay, so what did you find out from your notes then? Your research, I'll call it.
So in terms of the research, learn all the strategies. So you've got the BRR strategy, lease options, the flips, then you have the the SAs, the rent to rents. So it's just a question of which stream I want to go down and building my portfolio from there afterwards.
Excellent.
The aim is to not have my full-time job as my main income resource. So it's going down the line of I want my properties to be my main income source.
Wow, that sounds like a story in the past, Mr. Singh. Sounds a bit like your story, isn't it? Sounds very similar. I think probably
almost like probably about 100% identical.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds very ideal. And I think one of the interesting things come out of Sajal's conversation, and that is you can see that the landscape in the property market is so volatile that they're looking at things or strategies are sort of concentric around very lucid arrangements in property. So rent to rent, lease options. Now that's become Sajal's landscape, and she's choosing strategies which are from that pool of options. But if you really look at it, these options aren't very strong. Or am I wrong, Lakhi? I mean, are these the type of things you would have used in your time to buy a property, or would you not have gone in for hardcore deposits, loan to values, equity, raising value, putting in, add value and all that? She's talking about rent to rent, lease options, which is a totally different landscape. Doesn't it show you that there is a volatile market out there?
Yeah, I think rent to rent and lease options are
I
very
seem
much
to think that rent
cash.
to rent
Right?
seems to be a very
Just 1 minute, Lakhi.
scheme at the moment for them.
Okay, so what's the before we go to Lakhi, because Lakhi's got something there to say. I don't want to butt in when speakers are speaking, because I know I've been asked to try and let speakers complete what they've got to say, but I like to keep things moving. Sajal, what is the model of rent to rent? First, explain it to everyone.
So rent to rent is basically if I want to run a rent to rent scheme, I would go to find a landlord or go through via the agents, find a house that I think is suitable for clients, rent it off the landlord, and then bring my own clients in. So it's
okay. So how will that
from someone else?
Okay.
Hopefully
Okay. That's the definition. That's rent to rent. Okay. Now tell me, when you have an underlying factor, because you're an FC, so I assume you'll understand numbers better than me, because I can't keep a control of my numbers anywhere. I don't know the difference between 9 and 6, except for they both look the same depending on which way up I'm standing. Yes? Now, with you being an FC, tell me, what's the underlying reason a landlord who could rent a property themselves would give it to you to rent out? First, let's understand that.
Couple of reasons. A landlord will have to take on all the burden unless they're using an estate agent to find the right tenants themselves, do regular checks on the property. Whereas, supposing I was coming into it, I would take that burden off the landlord, and it become my responsibility to ensure that the house is 365 days full. Even if it's not full, the landlord would get 100% rent throughout the lease period. Whereas if the landlord was doing it themselves, there could be months where they will not have an income coming in if the rooms are not tenanted out.
Okay, question. You've used a particular word, burden. Now, I'm a landlord. I've taken on a mortgage, a buy-to-let mortgage with a property. I've obviously done it for the sake of generating income. Now, when you say burden, you're suggesting either my heart's no longer in it, or I don't want to do the maintenance and the management of tenants, even though I took a mortgage out for the purpose of having an income. Now, if I've got an income, and these are like a multiple of 3 or 4 questions, and I'm going to not let you answer them. I'm going to see what Lakhi's got to say for them, and then I'm going to come back to you to see what you've got to say. So you've got a property. I've taken a property on a buy-to-let mortgage. Now, example is I've got to pay £1,000 for that mortgage. The rental value of that property is £1,500. I know I can make £500, but I've got to take the headache of running it, managing it, probably appointing an agent who'll take a small slice out of that £500, but I'll still make money off it. Now, what I've got is I've got a situation that I don't want to run it. It's a burden for me. We don't know what that means. We'll get that from Lakhi, and then we'll go to Sajal. Then when you've handed it over to Sajal on a rent-to-rent basis, now Sajal says, I'm going to make sure it's run properly. I'm going to make sure the tenants in there, they are going to be paying their rent on time. I'm going to look after the property, all the financial requirements, maintenance, repairs, blah, blah, blah. How is it that Sajal's going to be able to create more rental than the 1,500 capacity to satisfy my needs, so that she can make money and also pay me, but make money? So what are the key factors that are going to add value for her to get a better rental income? Now, I know that there were things like that being done in the in London in certain areas where there's a high volume of migrant workers, and I know what they used to do there, which would sometimes be on the border of illegal, where you've got people standing and sleeping in rooms to get the maximum yield. I don't know how it's going to happen. So first, I'm going to ask that question to Lakhi. Lakhi's going to give his answer as to the concept behind rent to rent, and can it work, and how it works, and what this burden is. And then we're going to come back to Sajal and see where she has the answers to those questions. There may be a different answer nowadays. I don't know. Because remember, Lakhi was in properties many years ago when I was at school, and Adnan was probably still in his nappy. So this is a long time ago when Lakhi, when houses were carved out of caves. So Lakhi, give us your input. How does rent-to-rent work? What Sajal suggested, that scenario I've painted, can that work?
Yeah, I think rent-to-rent can work. I think a lot of it comes down to doing the due diligence on day one. So before you're taking rent-to-rent, you got to work out 4 or 5 simple things. Number one, what sort of profit the landlord's currently making, and what they're asking for in terms of the purchase price and the costs you got to pay to create an effective rent-to-rent, and the numbers stack. And so Sajal, in fact, probably have the perfect spreadsheet for that, being a financial controller. But in simple terms, the area is quite critical. So if you've got high rental demand in a particular area, but the landlord in terms of their requirements important. So if going back to the first question, why would the landlord want to do it? As Sajal said, they don't really want the headache or the burden of actually running a property. If they can get pretty much the same income, £1,000 a month, from doing a rent-to-rent, as if they were doing everything themselves, it takes away the headache. So they may want to give the property away for 2 years, 3 years, or 5 years on a contract. It just makes life easier for them, because they may not have the time. They may be abroad. They've got maybe 20, 30 other projects they're managing. They've got their own reasons. So there's that would be why the landlord might want to do it. It's mostly down to time and efficient use of their time, I'd say, and probably giving away the responsibility. They may not want to get involved in the technicalities, but they've got a family house that they've inherited, but they don't really know how to go about this, have the expertise. So there's probably a lot of reasons why the landlord would do it. So that's point one. Point two is, why would anybody want to do rent-to-rent? It's an easy way of actually getting into property without having to have massive amounts of capital. So, and actually building up cash flow. So a lot of people start off with a rent-to-rent strategy, build up their cash flow from 5 or 10 properties. They pick certain types of rent-to-rent which are easy for them to manage, which are maybe within a particular area. And from there, they work out their cash flow. So if the landlord was getting £500 on top and £1,000 was his cost, he's satisfied with that. If Sajal can go in and she's got a model to work out certain percentage of profit that she wants month on month, she may be able to get 2,500, and the landlord somebody would have probably packaged up this deal and then sold it on to her. But if she can get it direct, then she saves the cost of having to pay £1,000, £2,000, £3,000, even up to £5,000 or £6,000. So if it's a very good cash flowing rent to rent, then some people will charge even up to £5,000 or £10,000.
So you're talking about the introducer, the one who gives her the deal, yes?
That's right, because there's introducers that do that as a profession. So that's
okay. Yeah. You're going to continue. Sorry. Yeah.
So the third point is that if Sajal's confident that she can do it, and there's a minimal cost in terms of setting it up, because you might need to create an extra bathroom or create an extra room, or get it refurbished up to a certain standard to actually hit the target amount. Those costs, I think she'll need to bear in mind, because they're going to be critical, because she'll have to put cash or capital injection into the project. So if she's going to put £20,000 in, she may not have £20,000 lying around easily, and for her to get her profit back on a project might take a year. So she'll have to consider really how much capital she wants to put in, and whether she wants to use that capital elsewhere, because she may get a better deal in doing flipping deals rather than rent to rent. So
okay.
much. I think the key points.
Okay, great. Okay, we're going to hold you there. We've got a shout out from Harry Williams, Bob Singh, and from Burhan. So thank you very much. Big shout out to everybody. Plus, we've got a comment from Diljit Singh, who says he appreciates liking the topic. I think it's probably something that hits home with him. And he's also giving a big shout out to Diljit Singh as well. Right. Okay, so moving back to Sajal. Sajal, can you kindly now shed light on what Lakhi said? How much of that is true? And what is it that you look for? Are you looking at the financial planning? Are you looking just for the controls? What is it that you factor in to buy rent to rent? What have you learned, basically, and what are you implementing?
Everything that Lakhi said is actually 100% right. Me personally, I'm actually looking more at the flips. For me, rent to rent would be the longer route to get onto the property ladder. So that isn't going to work for me. Flips for me would actually be the better route because I can borrow the finance and get the cash flow, the lumpy money, as they say, much quicker than a rent to rent. Rent to rent would take me probably another couple of years to build up the cash flow for definite.
Well, just before you continue, Sajal, I don't want to interrupt. When you say flip, are you actually saying you literally do flips when you get money? Are you actually doing sort of like backward flips when you get the money, or what does that mean?
When I've got the money, I would probably be investor finance. It would be investor finance through commercial loans, development loans.
And then when you get that money, are you saying you're doing
raise the money, or if I have a property of my own, I can release cash from that to put towards the property. And
but when you say flip, what does that mean? What does the terminology flip mean? Does it actually mean when you get the money in your hand, in sort of enjoy of getting the money, you physically do like a backflip or something? Is that what it means? What does flip mean?
No, I can't do backflips to save my life, but no.
You can't do flat flips.
It would be, I am focusing on below market value deals. So
your line seems very broken. Sajal, your line seems very broken. You're talking, but it keeps crackling. So are you in a good reception area? You got good connection?
How about now?
Yeah, now you sound well. Right. Okay. Right. Now say again. So you said you would get money from an investor and then you would do a backflip.
It would be looking. Well, not the black flip, but it would be buying a property that's below market value.
Okay.
And where mainly look at properties where I add value to it. So it'd be a loft conversion or a property that needs an absolute overhaul, renovations, or an extension at the back where I know I can increase the value of that property. Mm-hmm. I would then sell it at a higher price than what I bought it, and that would be my flip.
That would be your flip. Okay. So it's not a physical flip, it's a selling on of a deal flip.
Correct.
Okay, and that has to be done within the 6 months window, or would you have to wait 6 months before you sell it?
I would have to wait 6 months before I sell it.
Okay, so going back to R&R, so rent to rent, the topic that Lakhi sort of explained, which is your model? What are you doing? Are you looking for areas that have got exceptional rentals and then identifying landlords who are either got an inherited property, a probate, or they've gone away and you're making contact with them? Are you working through agents who charge you a fee to get you the deal? How are you managing it?
I am not looking at rent to rents, to be honest with you. So I'm looking at more of flips. But in terms of, if we would look talking about rent to rent, it would probably be a question of going to agents, reaching out to landlords directly. That's sometimes a better resource if you want to save on the commission fees. But having said that, estate agents are also a very good stream, because they will, if you build a good connection with estate agents, they'll be able to get you more properties, which is always in hindsight an advantage to you.
Excellent. Okay. So you're not looking at rent to rent, but you are looking at flips, or
Yes.
you can say back to back, or key to key, they're called as well. Is that right?
Yes. Yes, correct.
Okay, excellent. So what you're saying is you will look for the asset and it has to be below market value. So the question goes to Adnan. Are there many below market value deals going on, with the fact that the market itself is somewhat volatile? Is there anything out there that's got enough equity to give you a below market value without it turning into negative equity? Seeing that the underlying topic this week is negative equity, and the quote of the week being, yes, yeah. And then is it you
Yeah, I
who's
think
got
we discussed
the,
this on Monday, Vijay. It was regarding obviously the below market value, and majority of my investors that we've got right now looking at properties are touching around about the 20% below market value mark. So if the properties do crash, the market does crash to, let's say, even 15% below market value, then at least they're covered by the 5%. So that's the kind of threshold a lot of people are looking at. Now, if Sajal is looking at, let's say, BMVs, she probably might be looking at around 20% below. Is that correct, Sajal?
I'm actually looking at more. I wouldn't be looking at BMVs. It would actually be that residential homes that I'd be looking for.
residential homes?
Yeah.
No, when you say residential homes, what do you mean? Pardon?
So it's just a normal family would come in, move in, and then I'll just do those houses up and then sell them.
No, she's doing key to key or back to back, but the point is with the BMV, Adnan has asked you whether you'd be looking at about a 20% below market value discount. That's what they call a BMV. You said you're looking at residential, so there's a bit of confusion there in the terminologies. What are you saying? Do you not look, what percentage discount do you actually look at to purchase a property?
I would look at properties that will a yield of about 20% as a bottom line figure after everything has been done.
Excellent. That's it. I like that. FC figures, numbers, I like that. That turns me on. It makes me realize that properties are in itself a business. So Lakhi Singh, this point, 20% yield after everything is done. That's a lot of yield. Could you handle that much yield, Lakhi?
I'm not sure what you mean, whether I can handle it. What's the question?
The question was asked by me, subject to what Sajal just said. She said that when she acquires an asset, she doesn't look at the discount, she looks at yield. And she says that the benchmark is, and correct me if I'm wrong, Sajal, you're saying after everything has been done. So let's suppose she's bought a property, it's below market value. We've not defined what that means to her, but she's saying she's buying it below market value. She's buying it at a discount. Let's use a simple terminology. She does it up, spends money on it, and then she looks at the end game as being the yield that she's going to achieve from that asset. So that is her benchmark, and she's saying it's 20%. So I'm saying to you, Lakhi, would you be able, is that right, Sajal? Is that what you're saying? Yes?
Yes, correct.
Accurate. So the question to you, Lakhi, is could you handle 20% yield?
I don't know what you mean by the question. Can I handle 20%? What does that mean?
So
I understand what you're saying, but I don't know what you mean by that.
Oh, you don't understand what that means? I'm saying, can you handle a property that would have 20% yield on it? Very simple. Would that be something that you would think was purchasable or doable? Would that be something that you would actually think you could manage in terms of having an asset that has 20% yield? Because that's somewhat falling into HMOs. So how can you get 20% yield out of a normal property? That's the question.
Okay, well, I'm not too sure what you mean by a question when I handle it because it's very vague. So I think you need to be quite specific about your questions. But I'll presume that to mean, are you saying something like, what do I think about it? What do I think about it?
For you, I'll make it specific for you. Adnan, have you understood Sajal's question? The question I posed. Adnan? Adnan? Hello? He's not there.
I think he's left. You okay?
Yeah, you're not there or you left? Where are you? Yeah, we can hear you. Yeah, so have you understood the question that I posed in Sajal's model?
Yeah, so I mean, in order to achieve, let's say, 20% yield, I mean, like I mentioned before, HMOs would be ideal. I mean, the larger the HMO, the more obviously yield you could gain out of it. I think BRRs are pretty much, let's say, a very good option as well. So you can do some refurbishment on a dilapidated house, and re-rent them out again. So Sajal has got obviously a key sort of formulas in place where she wants to achieve these sort of rates, and it can be doable.
But the question is it doable on a normal residential property that you've refurbed? So you've bought the property, you've done it up, and you're looking at a formula of 20% yield on a normal rental property, a buy-to-let. Is that possible? Doesn't that fall into HMO type of territory? You're doing individual roomlets and stuff, or service apartments? I think Adnan's got a problem with his communication. We'll come back to you, Sajal. So are you doing roomlets when you take these assets on, or is that the model you're going to be following, where you're going to be taking a property on, renting out the rooms individually, and or serviced apartments? Is that where you're going to get the 20% yield from?
No, so I'm just going to buy a house that I can get below market value at 20%.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you bought it at below,
and then
yeah.
Hopefully, if I have a very good power team, my costs will be low. With power team, so the builders. If I can get the costs as low as I possibly can, then I should be able to do the property up and then sell it at a higher value, and fingers crossed make at least a 20% yield on that.
Okay, so you're talking about the yield on the sale, not as in a rental yield. Is that what you're saying?
Correct. It's not on the rentals. I won't be renting out straight away.
That's right.
Purely because
I understand.
Money in.
Okay, so when you, I'm not sure whether the yield terminology works when you're selling assets. It's probably profit margins or GDV or now gross profit margins. I'm not sure whether the yield works. Yield normally, I think, is a terminology used for rental incomes, but you're saying 20% gross profit. Is that right?
Okay.
Hello?
Yes. Okay,
excellent. Okay, have you done any of these yet, Sajal?
Yes.
You have?
No, I haven't. No, I haven't. There was one deal that I did look at, but someone else bought the property, so I'm still looking for property.
Okay. Okay. Right. Okay. So the topic for this week being negative equity, and the saying of the week being obviously no problem is a problem. It's really all illusionary. So can you give or shed light on that? You're saying there's no problem. There's really a problem too great. It's all illusionary. So have you had any experience in your previous work, or even in the job you're doing at the moment, or even in property, in terms of your knowledge and the fact that you're trying to get into property. Have you found that there's been problems and they're not really problems, they're just sort of like they're illusion, they're as big as you want to make them, and there's always a solution behind them? I think there's a connectivity problem with Sajal. Is there anything like with connectivity? Okay, there's a break there. Okay, let's go over to Lakhi. Is Lakhi connected? Okay, Lakhi, you can answer that question. So in your dealings and in your work life and the stuff that you do day to day, have you seen problems that aren't as big as they're being made out to be? And do you find that problems are illusionary?
I wouldn't say they're necessarily illusionary, but that's how do you say? You do get problems that come up. I wouldn't say they're necessarily illusionary, because the question is that if you plan ahead of what you're doing and you know what you're doing, then you're not really going to get many problems. If you're quite switched on to what you're doing, got the knowledge and the experience, the right teams with you. Mm-hmm. But yeah, you can get certain problems that come up, which can be just lack of knowledge. So it could just be an illusion. You think you've got a problem and maybe raising finance or finding the right deal, and nothing seems to be coming up. So say you're looking for deals, for example, she might think after a while, is it really worth looking for deals? A lot of hard work, but that may be something that she may be using only one strategy to actually get the deals. You may need to look at 4 or 5 other strategies. May want to look at pay-per-click. She may want to look at organic search engine optimization, which is using the internet as a free resource, but using clever technology to rank up high to get sales in a particular area, in the area that she's in. She may want to look at other things, which such as sourcing agents that specialize in assets in and around her area. So yeah, I think to some degree, yeah, a lot of problems are illusions. A lot of them can be in your head. So you may never have any problems, but it all depends on really how you look at something and from what point of view. So keeping a positive state of mind is probably is critical to success in business, I would say, because you could easily create obstacles which are not there, especially when you're sort of starting off and getting into the flow of business and getting yourself going. Yeah. Okay.
A big shout out from Ninder, Amrit, and Sonia. Shout out, morning to you guys. Thank you for your support and you joining us this morning. I think these people are probably new members as well. Thank you very much. Feel free to add in any comments and ask questions, even though you've not been dialed in. But hopefully one time we will try and attempt to get all those people who are interested in coming into the live dial-in to come in and take part in the conversation and give us their worldly information and guidance. So can you hear, Sajal, are you back on? Because I think you had a bit of a problem with your connection, couldn't hear you. Can you hear us? Vikram Chauhan. Okay, big shout out from Vikram Chauhan. Good morning to you as well, sir.
Vikram,
Sajal, can you hear us?
Me?
Hi, yes, Sajal, can you hear us?
Can you?
Yeah. Okay, I think this seems to be a connectivity problem, Sajal, with your internet, because we can't hear you that well. So Rachin also, a big shout out. Just had that from him. Can you hear us?
Yes.
You can?
Yes, I can.
We can't quite hear you. And there's somebody in between eating crisps while they're on the mic. Is that Adnan? Are you sitting on a packet of crisps, Adnan?
Unfortunately, no. I'm still driving around.
Okay. I've got a question in for you, Sajal, from Bob. He said, "Are you a source dealer?" I don't know what that means. A deal sourcer. So I think you had it given to me the wrong way around. So you were a deal sourcer.
No,
You
I'm not
source
a
deals.
dealer. I'm not ready.
You're breaking up again, Sajal?
No, I'm not. I'm not registered to deal source at the moment. That isn't.
Breaking up. Okay.
She's saying that she's not registered to be a deal sourcer at the moment.
Right. Okay. Okay, that makes sense. So that's answering Bob's question. No, she's not a deal sourcer, but she is trying to get her feet into property. So you've not actually, Sajal, at the moment, done a deal in real terms. You're still looking. Is that right?
Correct. Yes, I'm still looking for a deal.
Since you started since June, you say. So was the studies or the theoretical bit? Was that started in June, or was that before June when you decided to start actively looking for properties in June?
It was. I started my course in June, and I started looking for properties a couple of months ago. So in August, I started looking for property.
Okay, well, Sonia's got a little bit of advice for you, and I hope it's Sonia who's given this. And she says the 20%, the flip or the sale aren't that easy to find. So that's her input. She says they're good, you can get them, but they're not that easy to find. So the point is that you're playing in a very sort of specific territory, Sajal. So I think because we've got Lakhi Singh, the property fixer here, that's the whole purpose of having these calls. Lakhi Singh, what advice do you have for Sajal if she's trying to get her feet under the desk in going down a purchasing of an asset below market value? And we don't know what that percentage is. She says 20%. Is 20% enough in this volatile market? And what advice can you help her? Can you fix it for her to find a property that she likes? That's the question.
I'm always 100% confident in fixing any type of problem because no problem is a problem too big. So that's the answer. But to make it more specific, I think there's about 10 key things that Sajal could be doing that will ensure her success. So number one is to build up her power team around her. So it's basically just streamlining all her processes around her to make sure that everything's in place for the perfect storm. So when she finds the perfect property, got the perfect team, got the perfect yield and the perfect gross profit, the perfect buyer, perfect agent, perfect lawyer, and the perfect exit on that. That's what you're going to create, but you almost have to work ahead of time, create all those teams, develop the process. It's almost like a business plan, but with a clear strategy so that everything is completely clear at every level of what she's doing. So I would actually, in the outset, meet with a consultancy like ourselves or a tax consultancy, also look at all the tax side of it, things what she's doing. I would also look at setting up a financial model for scaling up and actually having access to ideally unlimited funds. So when she gets a really good deal, she doesn't want to be in a position she's got a good deal, but she hasn't got the money in place to do the deal. So I would just say for the moment, don't worry about trying to do anything too complicated. Just get all the basics in place. And I would say I wouldn't even worry about looking for any deals for the moment, because if you really need to have your plan in place of what you want to do. So when you implement, your execution is 100% strong. So number one is, you know, is it going to be in a limited company? What sort of, you know, what deposits can you raise? So raising deposits is going to be quite important in terms of being able to buy and flip. And is she going to be able to have enough money for the refurb for these sort of projects? So I would say getting the model crystal clear in her head or in a plan is actually going to be vital to her success.
Okay, so that leads on to a question we've got from Ninder Singh, who says, where do you anticipate the market to be in 12 months? Because if Sajal buys something, and remember she said she can't, whatever she buys, she's not going to be able to sell it within the 6 months window. Technically, she's going to be 6 months plus before she gets to offload anything she's taken on. So where's the market going to be in 6 months to a year, Lakhi? Where do you see it?
So the market, I would say, is in a downward spiral. So it all depends on the demand in that particular area and location and the type of deal you're picking up. But I'd be very cautious on picking anything up. If you're looking for a 20% discount property, I wouldn't be looking for 20%. I'd probably be looking at least 30 or 40% in this market. And I'll also be buying something that if you did get stuck with it and you couldn't sell it because the market's crashing further, nobody wants to buy it in a flip, that you have a backup contingency, which is something we discussed the other day, which is to have something in place to allow for you to cover all your expenses and hold for the long term if you have to on a 10-year fix. Because you may be in a position where you get into a crashing market and you don't want to be stuck with something where you haven't planned for it for the worst case scenario. So those are my key points to be thinking about and addressing and implementing some critical strategies to ensure your success.
Okay, Lakhi's advice there for you, Sajal. I hope that worked, or at least gives you some indication. I think the important thing, I think Sonia Lambert, is that right? Sonia Lambert says a bit of advice for Sajal and probably for everybody is that if you're starting, Sajal, she says, probably start with a baby buy-to-let. And I don't know what that means. I assume probably a smaller flat or something up in the north. Whereabouts do you reside, Sajal?
I live in Surrey.
Sajal's in Mitcham.
Mitcham? Surrey?
Yes.
Did you say Surrey, Mitcham?
Correct, yes.
Yeah? Yes. So, yeah, I think Sonia is probably saying maybe play with something like a baby buy-to-let. And I assume that means smaller investment, play around with it. And then she also suggests to have a good mentor, somebody who's an experienced property investor, someone who will mentor you through that buy-to-let. And she says that that experience will teach you loads. Yeah? So that's probably one way of looking at it. But I think what Lakhi's saying is the big question goes to Adnan. Is the market really volatile and do you see it going crashing? Do you think 40% discount is what people can buy in this market at the moment? Adnan, you're still sitting on a packet of crisps? I think are you eating them now? I think someone told him stitching McCoy's crisps protect him from sun rays. Is that right, Adnan? Are you stapling McCoy's crisps to your body? So Adnan's obviously stapling crisp packets to his body to protect him from the sun rays. Is it sunny where you are, Adnan? I don't know, but we know Sajal's in Mitcham. So Sajal, with that advice that the market's quite volatile, does that scare you?
It does scare me in a way, because it's like I was saying to Lakhi well previously, that if I did buy a property and come 6 months I can't sell it, yes, the alternative would be to rent it, or I could turn it into an HMO if it's an Article 4 area. Is it an option that I want to go down? And that again would then come down to, that wouldn't be my route at the moment that I want, but with every strategy you need a plan B exit route, just in case your first plan doesn't come to terms.
Yeah,
so
well, that's exactly what Lakhi said.
Yes, so it does worry me to an extent, whether I want to buy right now or just wait till next year to see what happens with the market.
Okay, let's understand that there's a risk in the market, we all know that. I'm going to throw a curve ball in and say, well, what happens if the interest rates go up, Sajal? What are you going to do then?
The idea would be, for now, while the interest rates are low, I could release some money from my property, which would then help me if I have that in a. Then I could use that towards the property and then go through the developer's finance route or refurbishment route or bridging loan, whichever option I choose in the end. But that is an option that at the moment.
Okay, so you also know when you have a bridge finance, and remember Lakhi, I think also being the property fixer, has a unique advisory pool. So he does finance, he does the business planning, he'll do the property structuring as well. They'll do so many other things. The issue with bridging finance, and we'll go back to Lakhi now and ask him, are there advantages in using bridge finance to acquire deals, especially once the lenders, the banks aren't really doing business? Is it best to use bridging finance or trying to use your own cash deposits to acquire assets?
Even though we do a lot of bridging and it's quite lucrative for our organization to help people in bridging, I would actually use bridging as a way of financing as a last resort, because it's expensive. If you can get cheap money from the bank on a term lending, that's probably the safest and cheapest option to ensure your success if you're trying to do projects. Where I would use bridging, though, the caveat is that if you've got an exceptionally good deal, but you haven't got the funds at the moment, but you're waiting for funds to come out maybe from your projects, or you've got ample equity behind you, but you want to release capital from your assets quickly for a deal that maybe a deal where you're getting something bit like a deal that Sajal and I discussed actually about a week or so ago, where a deal actually had a purchase price was around 480, and it also had planning for a house next door, so it would have made potentially about 300,000-400,000 profit on that project. So something like that may have been worth considering in terms of doing a bridge. And there are a lot of clever types of bridging you can do as well, because if you are getting a deal where this is really an amazing way of using bridging, is if you're getting a discounted property, most banks will lend you on the purchase price, but certain bridging companies will lend you on the market value of the property rather than on the discount. So in that case, you could have potentially got 100% funding for that type of project. So I think knowing about all the tools takes a long time to actually know about every little thing that's happening in bridging and other things. But having a power team behind you and improving your knowledge in terms of the things you can do would probably save you a lot of time and effort. So there's a sort of balance between research and implementation. But I actually spent 1 year researching all these things before I implemented anything really. even researching the areas, and looked at least about 50 properties before I started buying. So I think the battle practice in the first year is very important. So it's not a question of whether you should be buying that now, whether the market's turning volatile. It's actually just getting all your homework done and getting yourself up to speed and getting your mindset clear about your direction. And then all the right deals will start popping up anyway, I would say.
Okay, so Sonia also adds a bit of further advice is that you need to have, a plan A and plan B. You'll also need to have exit. And then you'll also, she says, need to have a cushion of 3 to 6 months. So it is all about having 2 or 3 levels of options. And I think you can't go in for property on a one-dimensional basis. So that's the advice she's giving. Sonia's giving that to Sajal, but to everybody in general. And I think Ninder asked a important question about the volatility of the market. He says, what's going to happen once the stamp duty relief is removed? So we go back to bringing in stamp duty for certain assets. What will happen to the market? Is that going to impact the market as well as the interest rates? That's a question we may ask tomorrow because we're running out of time, but we will follow through. We've also got Ninder coming in on Friday, I believe, as a guest, so we can probably continue that topic on Friday with him and his expertise. Now, Sajal, having discussed openly these things and the way you're trying to manage your entry into property, where do you feel now? I mean, we've not got into too much detail with you, but obviously you've had a chance to talk to the likes of Lakhi, who's a property fixer. The purpose of him being here, setting up the alternative property and business community was for that purpose, so you could get people talking to each other. What do you still feel about property? Or what do you feel about your strategy? Are you ready? Or do you feel you still have lots of unanswered questions?
No, I feel I'm ready. There's always going to be a learning route, a ladder that you're climbing. So no matter how much experience you have, you'll always learn something along the way. In terms of buying right now, if I do find something that I know will give me a good profit, then I'll always consider it. And like Lakhi said, I've always got the finance routes that he's offering. So that's the option that I have. So it's not going to stop me in that sense. It's just trying to find.
Excellent. Well, that's one of the key features, I think, or key qualities we find in people who are business people. Because I think I sniffed there a hint of a business person popping up there, someone who's focused and wants to get out of the 9 to 5. Is that right? Is that right, Sajal?
Yeah, 9 to 5 plus another 20, 30 hours on top. So yes, definitely. Want to get out.
Good. Okay. That sounds positive. I like that. It sounds very focused that you know you're going to get into property. It's just when and how. Talking of being focused, we know that Adnan spent most of this drive time stapling McCoy crisps to his body. Someone told him it deflects sun rays, but I'm not sure. Adnan, have you been able to staple all the packets to you, or are you eating still to empty them out? Adnan's, I think, still, I think he's gone through phase 1. His phase 1 is acquiring a box of McCoys, and he has to eat the packets before they're ready to be stapled. So we'll leave him for now. We'll go back to Lakhi. I want to ask him a general question then. It's the last minute. Give us a summary about people like Sajal, there are lots of people out there interested in getting to property. What advice do you have for them, and what suggestions do you have for them being the fixer in property? What should they do, and how should they actually start?
I think before you do anything, I think you need to lay the foundation. So number one, I would actually understand everything around the tax situation, get a letter from an accountant or from ourselves, or look at really how to deal with your tax. Number two is look at what cash you've got to work with, how much, what's your income, what you can actually in reality raise, and see really what your budget is to actually to purchase. Third is having a very, very clear acquisition strategy in terms of what you want to buy and how you're going to go about buying it, and being clear about the exits. So I think getting the plan in place of what you want to do is probably more important. And then getting deals, all these sort of things will come anyway. But then you should go out and not probably look at least 20 deals that suit what your plan is before you commit. And even if you like something, you should hold back initially. And I think you should also have like a mentor or a third party who probably adds value to your skill set. So if you're quite technical, you might need somebody who's quite good at getting deals. But if you're quite engaging, you might want somebody technical in your team who's quite good at doing the numbers with you. So you've got to have that right team and the right power team with you to actually get deals done. So those are the sort of really basic things I would say when you're starting off. But if you're ever concerned about any deal, you're welcome to speak to the VJ Sal team here and throw any questions in. We're happy to actually give you our best input based upon the information.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for that, Lakhi, because we're running out of time today. I think that's given you a round understanding of what. One question left unanswered, and that is, what's this power team? Does it cost anybody money? So, Sajal, I think that's what I would ask if I was you. Is it going to cost me money to have people advising me or a power team behind me? We'll leave that until tomorrow. We're going to continue. And I think Adnan probably by tomorrow will have stapled the entire length of his body with McKay crisp, and we'll find out whether it does protect him from sun rays. So thank you very much, everybody, for your input and your time. All those who have been giving
one last thing.
Yes.
Yeah. Basically, what we could do is we should get Sajal on at least once a month or once every 4 weeks, just to see how she's getting on with her journey. But what I'm personally, being the fixer, I'm personally willing to commit to actually help her in her success. Excellent. And I think it'll be, let's say today is like a benchmark. Today is still in September.
The 9th of September, one day after month end.
We should actually do maybe a 2-hour show with Sajal and look at where she's got to. But this is only if the Sajal thinks it'll be good for her. But if she does any projects, we're welcome to. She's happy for us to do it. We're happy to sort of go in and do shots and actually talk about her journey as well. Probably help other people to learn as well. I think it could be a very good. You could actually be having your own show, Sajal.
Excellent. So, Sajal, thank you so much for your time, and thank you very much, Lakhi, for that summary. Everybody, Lakhi Singh, the drive time fixer session.
Sajal, you got to do that.
The alternative business and property solution session, the ICSA, or you can do the fixer, whichever you want. Thank you very much, Adnan, for telling us about sunrays and McCoy crisps. Take care. See you tomorrow. And I think we have a guest speaker tomorrow, Mr. Burhan. Is that right? Do we have Mr. Burhan? Yeah, from Commercial Lending. Excellent. We'll talk to him about how it and what he does and how the market is affected by getting bridge finance. And Sajal, you may get some tips in listening into that session, so we'll find out the key features of bridging finance. So take care until tomorrow. Thank you very much, everybody. Bye-bye.